Indeed, my friend, indeed. How's things? What,
Yeah,
what, do you know, I thought, how am I going to start this conversation today with Gavin? And I thought, be cheeky and just say, been up too much?
yeah, a few things have happened. Yeah, quite a lot's happened since we last spoke.
It's a year and a half, so as I went back and checked it, actually.
Really?
Do you know, I meant to do, that's what I meant to do, so we can say, we're already running, by the way, you know what it's like here. I just hit record and we'll see what magic happens, Gavin's, but I thought you better go and check what episode Gavin actually was. So, being ultimately unprofessional as I always am, let's do it live whilst I'm recording. So,
Yeah,
I know, as I say, it was a year and a half ago, but I want people to be able to go back and have a listen to the first one as well.
right.
It's episode 42 for anybody that's catching up with this one. Gavin was last on in episode 42, so you can go back and have a wee listen and a watch on that. So yeah, this is the first one I've actually done in a year, believe it or not.
Is that
So
right?
it is, bud. Just, do you know, when I started the Martial Focus, I wanted it just to be, and I've said this numerous times, I wanted it to be something that I enjoyed, and I was never going to be chasing big names and trying to get these fighters on and this and that. I wanted to talk to people like you who
Little people.
not at all, not at all, not at all. I wanted to speak to people like you that I was genuinely interested in and who I had a genuine respect for, and just have fun with it. But then it started to become a wee bit sort of burdensome, and
Yeah, I get that.
you know, and I took a step away and just concentrated on the Taekwondo school, and I'm doing a university degree as well, and all of that kind of got in the way. But then I started to miss it, and I think when you start to miss things, it's time to go back to them, I think. So
Yeah. Well, if you can, yeah, why not?
indeed, if you can. So yeah, where to start? I mean, I've got some stuff noted down, but I think the elephant in the room is obviously what you've been going through over the last number of months. And
Yeah.
first question that I had for you was, just for the listeners who don't know, Gavin, you made a sort of conscious decision to journal. You had been diagnosed with cancer,
Yeah.
and to make a journal on social media about your treatment and how you were feeling and everything that comes along with that. So what was the reason for that? What was the initial
So
reason? Because it must have been a big decision to do that.
yeah, it was, and I'm okay with you talking about anything. Actually, nothing's off limits anyway. I'm okay to talk about it. So I know this makes no logical sense, but I think you might understand, and quite a few of the guys listening here. When I got diagnosed with cancer, I was embarrassed by it, ashamed of it, and I know it makes no logical sense because it's a random thing, and that's why everyone's so terrified of it, because it can take the strongest of us. It's not to do with your lifestyle or what you've done. It can take the strongest. It's like the great white shark of our times, and I see, although great white sharks are in our times, obviously, but I see the horror in people's face when I tell them, and they're like, "What, you've got it?" And like someone else should have it, and of course that's not true. So there's a lot you've got to deal with your mind, because you do kind of go through, what do you mean, me? What, that I've got it? But of course, why shouldn't you get it? But
Yep.
so I was embarrassed by it, ashamed with it, so I didn't want to talk about it. And I think what the martial arts does, and the whole thing has brought my martial arts into a real sharp focus for me. And I don't know how I could have got this far without it. But one thing it allows you to do is to examine yourself and feel your body and examine yourself, to look inside and kind of trying to assess what's going on. And I realized that what I was doing, the reason I didn't want to talk about it was because I was embarrassed by it and ashamed of it. And that means I'm hiding from it. And as soon as I got that realization, I knew I can't both hide from it and fight it at the same time. Those two things are incompatible. I can't fight and hide. And the only way I could think of flushing it out fully into the open was to go completely public. And I determined to do that. And There's a few things I held back, but not much. You know, I was worried about scaring people, to be honest, with
Yeah.
some of it, because some of it's pretty horrific. But I determined that's what I was going to do. I was going to go public, and I was going to tell people how I was feeling and what was going on with me. And it was because of that, I kept fight and hide at the same time.
Yep. When you say about me understanding, or the guys, or MD who's listening, that was my. I can say this honestly and genuinely, that I don't think I've ever been as shocked seeing a post from a real person, from a friend, from someone, a sort of Budo brother type thing, not like something celebrity, or some craziness out there. But I think it's possibly, and I think if I've invited you on here, to be honest, I think the least you can deserve is me being honest as well. And I think I don't think I've been as shocked by that initial post. And it's so funny that you say that, because the reason was exactly what you've just said. Gavin Mulholland, no chance. No, and I was, yeah, I was shocked. So, as you say, nobody hides from it. Nobody hides from it. Nobody's immune to it. Certainly, nobody's immune to it.
And that's why it's so terrifying.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. What did you get from the? What did you get from the daily journaling? How sort of? I always use the word therapeutic, and I know I kind of used that when we were chatting briefly before the podcast as well, and maybe we'll come back to that too. But I think I like things to be therapeutic, and I think a lot of people do, but I don't know if that necessarily was the case or reason for you. Or
No, it wasn't actually. And I do know what you mean. I do understand the concept of kind of, you know, putting it out there as a kind of therapeutic thing for yourself, but it wasn't. It was hard to write.
yeah,
And it built its own momentum, really. No, it wasn't therapeutic for me. It was always, I mean, there was funny bits in there because it's funny, right? Life's funny. There's bits that made me laugh, always. Like,
yeah,
you know, I'm Irish, and at funerals, everyone's hysterical laughing. You know, it's just a bit weird, but there is funny things in these horrific times. But the amount of support I got is, and I'm having now, is beyond description, and we can talk about that in a bit. But
yep,
you know, it's, you know, I genuinely feel unworthy of it. But that built a commitment. You know, people were supporting me, and I felt I've got to carry on. I've got to be honest with what's happening.
yeah,
And to be honest, a lot of it is just a fug of pain and horror. And because of the support, I felt, you know, I've got to keep doing it. I've got to keep my word, you know, because what's disappearing is your physicality. And so what have you got but your word when all that goes? And it's been so revealing to me. I was shocked by how much of how I see myself, I won't lie, I'm not through this by any means,
yep,
was based on my physicality. I hadn't realized how much my view of self was because I'm strong and powerful, and I'm that person that can help and can deal with violence, can deal with things. And you know, I'm not a violent man. I've never claimed to be, but that sort of confidence that brings means that you're the one that step in. I've always thought that with you know, my karate has always involved like survivalist type stuff, and so does DKK, because it makes no sense to me that you train 4 nights a week to be able to look after yourself if someone attacks you, and yet your car breaks down in northern Scotland and you die because you don't know how to light a fire, or you didn't put any water in. You know, all that stuff makes no sense to me.
yeah,
You know, so to me, something goes wrong, say on the tube, or some incident on the tube, something goes wrong, people have got to get out. You're the one to get them out. That's part of your responsibility. I've always seen that. Don't know how consciously I saw it before, but its lack made me see it. My inability to do that, or potential inability to do any of that, really rocked my view of self. And I hadn't realized how much my view of self was based on my physicality, which of course is probably stupid anyway, because you get old, right? So it's always bound to go. So it's
Indeed.
probably not a healthy self viewpoint anyway.
Do you know that leads me on to my next point actually, but as always, I'll go off on a tangent and we'll come back again. Sitting here with you, Gavin, it just feels as if, and I'm so glad that we arranged to do this, because this is I'm actually feeling as if I've never been out of this chair, and I don't do this sort of professionally in a studio. I'm actually in, for anybody who's just listening to the show today, I'm actually in my little boy's room, hence the green background, because a lot of people will see this on YouTube thinking, oh, he's went with a green background now and all of this jazz, but
yeah, you're going to put something Okinawa on there.
Yeah, yeah, it won't be. It'll stay green. The point being is, I'm realizing how much I've missed being in the chair type thing, and just miss having these conversations with people like yourself. But
I think
go
our
ahead.
backgrounds probably reflect our kind of inner workings. Yours is kind of peaceful and clear, and mine's just utterly chaotic and shambolic.
Well, I've just had an argument with my wife this morning, so when she listens back to this at the weekend when we release it, she'll say there's nothing calm and peaceful about him at all. But anyway, the point that I want to make before I get to my planned point was there definitely was, and I don't know if you felt this. I hope you did. I really hope you did. There was an energy building. That's what I felt as the posts were coming out and we were commenting on it or sending you a private message, and there seemed to be a positive. I genuinely hope, and again, I know you're honest enough to say whether you did or you didn't. I felt there was a positive energy coming from the martial arts community and the whole community as you were posting daily with journalism.
Yeah, I mean, I had 6 weeks of daily radiotherapy and chemotherapy every day, weekends off, so 28 days straight. And you know, I likened it to being English and having someone hold the door open for you through a series of corridors. You know, after you've said, yeah, thanks, cheers, mate. Yeah, in the end, you've got to pretend to tie your shoelaces or something, haven't you? Because you run out of things to say. You don't have to thank them again. And so I was clear from the start that, you know, you don't have to comment. I'm going to post every day, but you don't have to. You don't have to say anything. A little thumbs up or a little nod of appreciation is enough.
Yeah.
Because what do you keep saying? I mean, what do you say in the first place? We'll come back to that, but you know, there's nothing to say. So, but what happened was people did keep going, and there was an energy. I know I undoubtedly took strength from what people were doing, and Goran Powell, my friend, brother-in-law, and student, set up a GoFundMe page, and I was thinking, because the trouble is now I'm in London, and the hospital's inside the ultra low emission zone, and basically it would cost me £15 a day to get there. That's to go into that zone, and then £20 a day to park. So £35 a day, and I'm not earning. Obviously, I'm not working. And so Goran said he asked me if he could set up this fund page, and I said I was embarrassed by it again, and I'm sort of like no. And then I thought, well, you know what? I do need the help. I need help. And I was thinking if I get 60 quid in there, that's 2 days taxi. Brilliant. Yeah, that will do. If I get 2 days in a taxi where I don't have to get on the tube, then that's brilliant. And it went up over 10 grand. And, you know, I am staggered by that. I'm staggered and unworthy by that. And I've said, you know, all I've ever done is be mean to people and hit them all my life. And all that's come back is love. It's ridiculous. But yeah, they sort of it was overwhelming. It is overwhelming. The tidal wave of support, you know, and it is a sort of one thing I realize. You do sort of realize a lot. I realize I see myself much more how much of a dick I was, and probably am. You can see that more clearly. and I was overly prideful of my physicality and stuff. You know, I was overly proud of that. Not overtly, but I can see when you know, like I said, you look inside, and you know, it's really got nothing to do with me. The same as the disease, where it's mostly sort of genetics. I mean, you know, I train hard, but I'm only doing stuff I want to do.
Yeah,
you know, that's nothing to be proud of. You know, other people want to sit on a couch and eat cake. You know, it's not, neither deserve pride. You're doing what you want to do. But what I am proud about, and the reason I bring it up, is there are people, even now, probably today, praying for me in churches, mosques, temples, synagogues. I've had blades buried for me in the stone circles. You know, spells cast, candles lit. Everyone, all these people conveying with the eternal or whatever they think that is in their own way for me. And that is a source of pride. How many people could say that with that level, those different religions and belief systems all coming together to push energy one way? And people said to me, I don't know what you believe, but can I pray for you? And I said, it doesn't matter what I believe. Thank you, please do.
Yep.
You know, it's irrelevant what I believe. I appreciate that so much to sort of convey with your belief system to my benefit has to have power, right?
Yeah,
Well, it does have power because it had power to lift me, so it has got power.
Yeah, I get right. So that brings us perfectly to the next point. That you've kind of answered some of this, but I'll tell you what I've written down. So I wrote,
taking my hat off, but I didn't want to, I didn't want to see people that had lost my hair. It's lost all my hair.
Handsome devil as ever, Gavin. What have you learned about the martial arts community over this last difficult year? That, and mate, do you know the good thing? One of the good things about you is your honesty. And see, if you don't know, and I've seen this on your social media, I've spoken to you twice now, sort of face to face on the podcast, and there's an open honesty about you. So I know that if you have learned things, you'll say, well, actually, I was maybe a bit ignorant to this in the true sense of the word, or I didn't really appreciate that in the community. And you've touched on that already, but what's this last year? What things has it taught you about us, about you and me and all these other men and women that put their pajamas on 4 times a week? And
yeah, it's a very good point. And I mean, I've been accused a lot of times of being elitist. DKK, Daigaku Karateka, is tough. It is a tough organisation, and I keep it tough. And I've written articles that karate is not for everybody. I clear people out. New students come, and I don't keep them all. I don't want to keep them all. I keep 1 in 10, all that stuff. And I've never seen that accusation of being elitist as an insult. Mm-hmm. I've always thought, yeah, I am, and that, to be honest, I won't lie. I haven't become a monk. I still am elitist in that respect. But what I didn't realise was that the martial arts community is a community. I didn't realise that. I mean, I've sort of been on this road before this. I've sort of come around, to. I don't hate the likes of GKR and those McDojo type organisations. I don't hate them, and haven't for a while, although I have in the past been very kind of pissed off with them. And it still bugs me that they stole our symbolism, belts and stuff to their own ends, which they undoubtedly did. I'm not just talking about GKR, all that sort of family stuff. But then it sort of became clear to me, this is before all this, that doesn't matter. I think I've said to you before, Man United or whoever's good at football these days, and I've got no idea who that is, but they don't trawl the internet for fat guys in their 40s playing Sunday league football and saying, look at these twats. That's rubbish. That's not football. You just don't. It is football, just not Premier League football.
Yeah.
And I realised about those martial arts clubs. They're training for non-martial reasons. They go there because their kids go there, or their granny teaches there, or it's fun. And I've never seen martial arts as fun. I've never seen karate as fun. That word doesn't go with it for me. And I see a lot of that on social media as well. People say enjoy your training, and I'm really I enjoy it when it stops, but that's not been my experience of it or desire for it. So I'm sort of on that road, but through this, just the support of it, the support I'm talking about is both financial, and it's not just financial. People bring food round. They've been, people have been around fixing my motorbike, putting lights up in the garage. Someone's done, just some builders come around and says, is there anything I can do to the house? Just people trying to do whatever they can.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, there's people I expected help from. I knew DKK would rally behind me, not to the extent that they have. But there's people, friends that I know would help. But what's really shocked me is the people that barely know. Mm-hmm. barely know that have just upped and helped. And in a way, it's annoying because I can never be mean to anyone again. Because what if they chucked a tenner in? You know, I can never. What would I do? But what I do realize is, on the other side of this, I'm going to have to hold myself to a higher standard. And part of that, do you know George Andrews? Have you heard of George Andrews? He's a Goju guy. He's in his 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we've known him. I mean, he was a fifth Dan when I was a first Dan, so one of Hagana's sort of stalwarts. And yeah, in his 70s now. And we've known each other. We've had the occasional contact in 40 years or something. And at one point for DKK, to get a third Dan, you had to go and train in another dojo for 6 months. We don't do that anymore. But that was one of the things. And George took on one of my guys to do that. Nothing in it for him. You know, I mean, I would pay his mat fees, no doubt, but, you know, there's nothing there. He messaged me out of the blue a couple of weeks back, and, you know, we don't have that relationship. We've never messaged each other ever. And he's a Goju guy in London. You know, Hagana's set. So potentially not rivalry, but, you know, disagreement in how it should be done, you know, teaching. And he said, can you send me your bank details? I want to make a donation. And again, my initial thought on all this is, no, I don't want that. And then it's like, well, yeah, I kind of do need it. So I messaged him, said, I don't know what you got in mind, George, but whatever it is, thank you very much. Hope you're well. Anyway, he dropped a significant amount of money in. And I rang him up, and I'm almost in tears. And this has also revealed a lot about myself. I can deal with violent men. I can deal with aggression. What cracks me up, and I didn't realize it, and I realized I must have a problem, is people being kind to me. I've never been good with it, and I don't really know how to handle it. And so I'm nearly in tears, and I'm just like, what are you doing, George? Why? And he didn't, to be, it's credit, he doesn't understand the question. And because he said, sort of puzzled, you've got to feed your family. Like it was a stupid question.
Yep.
And Tony Christian's just sent some money down, like, have a good Christmas, you know, just another top Goju guy. So all that Goju set rallied around, in a way that I'd never seen that as a sort of, you know, I know Goju's tight, but I'd never seen it as that sort of, that level of help. And when I say I've got to hold myself to a higher standard, a few years ago, and I hope that he doesn't mind me saying this, I'd heard, I mean, it may not even be true, but I heard that George Andrews again, had been through a nasty divorce and was basically sleeping on his dojo floor. I don't know if that's true. But did it occur to me for 1 second to put my hand in my pocket or even reach out to him to see if I could help? And the truthful answer is it didn't. But it will in the future. Yeah. It will in the future. So Goju was a much tighter thing. And I think Goju is tight, probably the tightest, I think, because you've got things like Kyokushin who are really quite a significant powerhouse and solid, but they're a tournament style, so they're sort of against each other.
Yeah.
Well, whereas Goju isn't, and Goju's strength is its difference. We don't have to be the same. It's not Shotokan. We don't. You can walk into Goju dojos and they're entirely different, and that's our strength. And so that was amazing. But going beyond that, people like yourself, you say like Taekwondo and MMA and just people that I haven't really touched in any way, messaging support. And I want to say, you know, I don't want to emphasize the money too much, but but that's what shocked me, because there's no such thing as spare money, right? Anyone that put a tenner in is a tenner they could have spent on themselves or their own family. But it isn't just money. It's just those messages of support, or those ones where, like, somebody sent me a guitar refurb kit, new strings and you know, tuning stuff, and just a project to do on those days when I'm just frozen. You know, a project, so which I did with my brother who's died a couple of years ago. I had his guitar, and I haven't changed the strings on it. And I know you've got to be careful with things like this, because he wouldn't give a shit about his strings. You know, he would have changed them in a heartbeat, but you can get attached to stuff.
Yeah, I understand.
Whereas I couldn't bring myself to quite just go and buy a set of strings. Someone else, the gift of it means I could just do that. So just things people have thought about what they could do. And undoubtedly this wider martial arts community that messaged me, and people saying, you know, they'd read a book, or that I'd influenced their training, or I'm like, I don't what? And what I've learned about the martial arts community, to come really succinctly answer your question, is I've learned that there is a martial arts community. That's what I learned, and I didn't really know it.
The thing, I think I knew it. I hope. I think from what you're saying, it definitely, what I hope exists, absolutely does exist.
I can tell you it exists. I know it exists now.
Yep. And that's all of us. It's, as you say, do you know the bit that I always love, the fact that, and we touched on people saying prayers and things earlier on, and I always love the fact that you can walk into my Taekwondo class on any given night in the west of Scotland, which isn't as bad as what it used to be. It's not anywhere near as bad as what it used to be. The generations are getting better. We're more educated, etc., etc. But you can walk into my Taekwondo school on any given night, and there'll be Protestants, Catholics, there'll be a Muslim guy at the front teaching class, there'll be Pakistani kids, you know, Jewish people, Hindus, whatever. And if you just sort of zoom back from that, that's the martial arts community. Doesn't matter what our backgrounds are or what our religions are. Or
yeah, absolutely. I think the dojo, or whatever you call it, I think it's the only place it's real, to my knowledge, because you get a lot of people saying they're inclusive, and and saying that they include everyone, and the fact is they're talking about it. We never talk about it. It just is. It's a genuine place where you are judged not even on your ability, on your spirit, your will to push yourself. That's what you're judged on, and genuinely nobody cares about your religion, color, gender, any of it.
That's interesting, and I'll throw this little point in here just because it's came to my head during Pride Month. I put a post together, and I ran it by a couple of my students from the school that are gay, and I said, what do you think about this? Do you think my wording's right? And it's just about putting a bit of support out there, etc., etc. And then, and again, this is one of these times where I'll talk about something on the podcast, and I'm absolutely welcoming being more educated on it. And I gave it to these guys, and they do we look at it, and they were, yeah, that's good. Yep, I would post that up. But see what you've just said there, and that's why I like being able to discuss these in a longer format, like on the podcast rather than on Facebook. I actually ended up not posting it.
Right.
I didn't post it because, and this is where I'll come back to where I think I might be wrong here. I didn't post it because of what you've just said. It doesn't need said in our environment.
No.
It's the one place I know in my life where, as I said, that community is there no matter what you are. And I don't know, was I right or wrong? Should I have posted it and actually proactively shown support, or was I just happy enough that I didn't have to post it because...
See, that's a difficult one. It's one I bumped up against recently. There's one of my students, a mid-level student. He's a good student. He burns bright, but he's definitely troubled. And he came to me and said he's going to stop training for a while. And I suspect he's gay, and he's from a military family. And I just think what I wanted to try to say to him is, it's all right. Nobody here cares, but you can't say it without bringing it up.
Yep.
Right. And I don't know if he is gay. I just think he might be. And so I was talking to my son, Tiger, my boy, about whether I should bring it up, and he was hysterical laughing. And I said, what? He goes, well, let's just role play that. I'll be you and you be him. So he said, he goes, so I said to him, right, like, I want to stop training. And he went, are you gay? I thought, you're absolutely right, Tiger. I'm not qualified to deal with any of this. I'm saying nothing. I'm just keeping my doors open, and he's welcome back anytime.
Tiger's your boy that's away at university, is that right?
Yeah.
So what age is he?
He's just turned 20 now.
Right, okay. So I'm 40 now, and I I'm actively. There was a lovely wee point. Just I was actually posting some stuff up on Facebook about one of my university assessments, and one of my students had posted under it saying, "Check this guy out. Check this guy out," and that's relevant to what you're studying. And the very next day, I open up my university book, and the guy who my student, who's 16 or 17, had said to look out for is in the textbook. So I'd put a wee post up saying, the master learns from the student type thing, and we had a wee joke about that, and etc. etc. Why is that relevant? That was Thea, by the way, so I'll give a wee shout out to Thea. I'm actively speaking to younger people now and you've just given the perfect example of it, speaking to people saying, what do you think about what I think, or let me run this by you, and gladly being educated by. I still think I'm still young enough not to use the word kids, but it's the kids. It's actually, I still like to think I'm in that bracket, and I'm so not in that bracket, but it's important. It's important. Tiger has just sorted that for you. And
just shone a torch on how using humour and showed me how ridiculous it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Back on track. I've wrote down, people that know me or know the podcast will be fed up of me actually mentioning this, and you'll know I'm going to use the Musashi quote again. So the Miyamoto Musashi, my favorite quote of his is, "Know the way broadly, and you will see it in all things." And I think that's where I am now. I hope that's where I am in my martial arts journey. Looking at you, Gavin, to me, you absolutely are. And I want to investigate how that has helped this year. So what's Kareem talking about again? I'm talking about, I don't think there's anything that I don't look at where I don't have martial arts in my head. Any problem, any political situation, any personal situation, any physical situation, I look at it and I relate it back, most of the time subconsciously now, to knowledge I have from martial arts. So I think I know the way broadly now. I know my art broadly, so I'm able to see it in all things. Does that make sense before we move on?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it does.
So how did it change in your mind? But all the stuff that you already knew, how does that help one through what you're going through and have been through? That's a big convoluted question, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, we might have spoken this before as well. I mean, one of the first articles I ever published back in the 90s was saying karate is for fighting.
Yeah.
You know, it's just for fighting, and everything else is just nonsense. It was basically what the article said, and I'm all right with it. I don't believe it anymore, but I'm all right with it because I was a second dan at the time, and a second dan karate should just be about fighting. So I'm all right with it because it is this. I hate the term, but it is a sort of journey of discovery anyway. And then, but actually, you know, I can teach someone to fight in 6 weeks. You know, one of the reasons that I think it is an art is that someone will say to you, "Why do you train?" And you don't really have an answer. You'll make something up. It's not true. Self-defense. No, you don't. That's absolutely ridiculous. I could teach you to fight in 6 weeks. You know, we do Krav Maga, you'll know it in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If you want to carry on training in Krav Maga for years, you know, that's one of its problems, really. So it has to try and reinvent itself over and over, because what it was set up to do was just any military thing is just very basic, you know, little course. You learn a few things, you can fight. So you already know that martial art is more, there is an academic study to it, and it's become, again, I was already on this journey. You know, I was very clear that combat is the vehicle by which we discover ourselves and look at the world. But to me, that all the more reason for that combat to be hard, difficult. Path has to, in my opinion, the furnace has to be hot. Otherwise, you're not on that path.
Yep.
But the constantly through the treatment and through the horror of what I've gone through and I'm going through, as I say, I'm not out of it yet. I don't even know if it's worked yet. I won't know till April next year if it was successful.
Yep.
And I can't talk about the consequences of it not being successful. I can't talk about that, and I don't look that far. So that's one thing it's done. It's pushed me genuinely into what I've been preaching about living more in the moment. I'm not looking beyond tomorrow. I genuinely am not looking at it because it's terrifying, for one, and I can't look at it. And the 28 days was so like the 30-man fight.
Explain that. I know what you're talking about, but explain that. That's worth pausing there, because the point that you're making, let's tell the listeners and viewers about the 30-man, because
Right, okay, so
yeah.
So within DKK and others, there's other people do it as well, but within DKK, the second level black belt is a 30-man fight. So you train for about a year for it. So you do your showdown, then you're a year bedding that in, and then have another year training for your knee down. And the knee down is a 30-man fight. So 1 minute round, full contact, 2-minute break after 10 fights, 2 minutes breaks after 20 fights. Fresh fighter every time, going up in grade, so the best fighters at the end, not the beginning. So it's brutal. It's horrible to look. It's horrible to be a part of. And you cannot. We do it outdoors at summer camp most of the time on this bit of ground that called the Field of Truth. And you can't step off. You do not step off the Field of Truth the same person that you stepped on. You don't go through that and come out the same way. We see it time and time again. And it really is a brutal barrier to overcome, but one worth it if you have the physicality to do so. And also along with the sort of, like I said, I'm already a bit on this road. A few years ago, we did put in an alternative route to knee down for those that physically could not. We had people that had operations on their hips, and they're just not going to get through that 30-man. And previously in DKK, that was the end of you were out. And then we just, as you get older, I guess, or just more mature, either as a person or a martial artist, it's like that isn't right. So we have that. When you get your when you pass the 30-man, you get a black gi. Anyone in black gi in DKK has done the 30-man fight. So we opened up a route for a white gi, knee down and beyond, for those that physically couldn't do it.
Yep. Okay.
Not their choice, our choice.
Yep.
Never their choice. And we've got some of our top fighters are white gi now. They just couldn't. It'd be dangerous to put them through it.
Yep.
So that 30-man fight was so in my mind during the 28 days that I had to go through this daily torture, and getting up and going there and doing it again and getting up again and doing it. You were just getting up and getting the shit kicked out of you every day. And what was really interesting with the 30-man around it, so it's held in June. So they have to declare at winter camp. They have to stand up in front of everyone at winter camp, because you've got to stand up and make it formal, like Cortez burning his boats on the shores of the New World, because you can't then sort of train a little bit or not. You say it in front of everyone. So you have to stand up in front of everyone, get everyone's attention, have a whiskey in your hand, say, I intend to do the 30-man next year, down the whiskey, and that's your last drink until the job is done. Yeah. Theoretically. What actually happens is they then get pissed, but theoretically and symbolically, that's supposed to be your last drink. And so that happens around sort of October, and then in January, not announced, but they all know it's coming. We give them one day when they walk into the dojo, I have a 5-man waiting for them, 5 black belts, and it's done to shock them as to how, because around that time they sort of think they're getting there. They think they're fit, they think they're strong, and they utterly always get the shit kicked out of them because they haven't trained hard enough. Because the enormity of the task just you can't describe it. So they're never ready. And it's there to terrify them and show them just how far they've got. It's a kick up the arse to get training properly, to get on with it. That what you're doing is not enough. That was 5 people. You've got 30, you've got 6 times that. And I had two real major wobbles during it. And the first one was day 5, which was fascinating because that was the 5-man, and then this day 5. And what I did and what I had done was I'd made the mistake of looking up and looking along the line and seeing how far I had to go. And it was terrifying. And that was day 5, the same as that 5-man, which is designed to do that. and to pull back to say I don't look beyond day one, the next day, the next day, the next day. That's the one day I didn't do that. I looked ahead and really struggled at that day 5. So that was utterly relatable to that 30 man. And my instructor, Kim Roberts, Kyoshi Kim, he's been like on the phone daily. He's really been there, and he talks a lot sort of about battlefield stuff. And that was the other thing I said. I said, I don't want to hear it's a battle. Don't call me a hero. Don't call me a warrior. I hate all that. It's not a battle. And what I realized I was wrong. It is a battle. It's just not the one I thought it was.
Okay. Yep.
Because I always thought, because if anything, I'm the battleground. The warriors are the NHS staff that are working on me, that dedicate their lives to fighting this disease. I'm the battleground. I'm not a warrior. You know, they're the ones fighting it. I'm just lying there and hoping to God that they've done their job right. And
I've never considered that ever like that until you just said that there. Ever. And I have a huge respect for the NHS, and we have experience in our family of serious illnesses and things. And yeah, sorry, I'm interrupting you there, but that's one of those things when you're doing these sort of podcasts and things that someone says that just
yeah, I mean, you know, it struck me. These are the people that, you know, in my younger days, I was taking the piss out of because they were going to do their homework, you know, and pushing about. They, you know, there you need them, don't you? And it's like, well, thanks for studying and doing something useful with your life.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, so that struck me as well. But just the sort of parallels with the 30 Man were so strong through it, and also just the hardening of, you know, I got through that. I've got through training. I've done this 1,000 times. And one of the other things, a guy called Dave Arnold, I don't know if you know Dave Arnold, he's another one of the original Goju guys. Very tough. Well, he's in his 70s now. Still very, very strong, very tough guy. Old pugilist, old school karateka. And I was talking to him early on, and I was saying to him, you know, this is the best bit of advice I got through the whole thing.
Okay.
And I said to him, you know, I want to face this with courage. And he said, well, you do or you don't. Well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you can, or you can bawl your eyes out every day. It doesn't matter as long as you face it. And that took me right back to sort of early tournament days. And I remember probably more than one occasion, but I remember one particularly in Liverpool where we'd driven up overnight. We're in a car park at like 5 a.m. waiting for the fight. And I'm physically sick after breakfast. I'm vomiting. Like physically vomiting because I'm scared, fear, throwing my guts up prior to the fight. But I still fought and I won. And that was the same thing. It doesn't matter whether you've got bravado. It doesn't matter if you're vomiting with fear. It doesn't matter if you piss yourself. You still got to go and do it. And as long as you go and do it, that's all you can ask. And so that bit of advice from Dave was the best bit of advice I got. By all means, be brave if it helps you, but if it doesn't, then don't. And that's sort of wisdom from him.
This is a. I'm asking this, and it's a total basic question, but it might even be a stupid question, and it might be a yes or no answer, and it might not be. Do you think your decades of karate training have helped you through this?
Yeah, I don't know how anyone does it without it. I don't think I could have got that through what I've got through without it. And the other thing it does, because what I think, we said it's not just about fighting, but ultimately martial arts about examining every aspect of yourself: physical, mental, spiritual, moral. That's what it becomes. And what that does, and what it did for me, it allows me to look at myself separately. I could always isolate pain and put it in a box. I could do that already, but I thought I knew pain before, and I didn't. Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't.
Yeah.
So I've been able to sort of step outside and almost watch yourself was martial training, to examine what, you know, one of the ways you can get rid of pain not this sort of pain, but little pain, normal pain, is just put a laser focus on it. Try it next time. You may do it already, Kareem. You may do it already, but just turn a laser focus on it and just say, so say my shoulder's hurting. It's like, oh, just go, right, what is that? What is that sensation? What are you feeling? And isolate it. What is that feeling? And it doesn't, I don't know how to describe it, but it doesn't become pain anymore. You just assess it for what it is, so you can put yourself aside from it and kind of look down on yourself.
I don't do that, and I'll admit I don't do that because, and again, this is something my wife will laugh at when she listens back to this over the weekend, and my students, especially the adult female students. Adult female students generally are what I would call they just get on with life, whereas I moan about absolutely everything. Oh, my tooth is sore, and oh, it's sore, it's the end of the world, or oh, my shoulder's sore, or it's the end of the world. Again, that's so superficial on one level, but the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, which is a saying of mine as well. And even when you were saying there that you thought you knew pain at the time, that was the pain, and
Right.
and now obviously you've experienced in Europe what actual real pain was.
If Charlie, my wife, and the kids were not in the house, I'm screaming, like screaming.
Yeah.
If they were, then I just had to suck it up. And I'm talking about curled up in the tray of the shower.
Yeah.
You know, and what I found was that, you know, through the martial training about this isolating of things, it was the three-pronged pain, sickness to the chemo, and exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
It was the three of them, and it was, I mean, I guess you can only see things through your own lens, right? And I guess I have a, like you said, everything is a martial lens. So, but that really felt like multiples, fighting multiples, and I knew if I could isolate one of them, I could deal with it.
Yeah.
But the other ones, they would. I know this sounds mad, and I was on and am on morphine, so fair enough. But it was like that thing had a consciousness, and those two, the extra two, would ramp up their attack while I'm trying to deal with one.
Yep.
And they would ramp it up, and the truth is, either I could deal with it up to a point, but it was too much, or I'm not good enough yet. I couldn't contain all three.
Perhaps that's that martial lens for sure, because it's about. I mean, you've been in this position with I know the 30 man is one off, one on, one off, but you're fighting this three-pronged. You're fighting three guys.
Yeah.
Outside the nightclub on a Saturday night, aren't you? And
yeah,
you know, it's
just that.
You're analysing that as three individual attacks. I think that's completely logical.
Yeah, and the same thing. The only way you can beat three guys is to make three guys two guys really quick.
Yeah.
You know, which is why I don't. For me, I mean, other people have got other skills, but unless you've got knockout power, I don't know how you can deal with multiples.
Yeah.
The only way I know to deal with it is you line them up so they can all hit you at the same time, knock one out. So then there's then two, and then you do it again and knock that one out. Without being able to knock them out, I don't really think it's possible, but I'm willing to be educated otherwise.
Indeed.
And I couldn't.
I'm on board with you. I agree with that. Oh, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't. I'm not yet good enough to keep those three pronged. They would overwhelm me. And do you know what? The sickness was probably the worst. Right now, the pain is right down. The sickness is right down. I'm just exhausted. But I can deal with one.
Yeah.
Can deal with that. And that was all martial training as well that allowed me to look at it in the way it was, and to step outside when things were really bad, and I think to see the funny side of stuff. You know, I think it really helped. I think that's martial training, because you get this dark humor, right?
Yeah. Yep. I'm hoping that people will go back on to your social media. And again, it's so crazy that we're sitting here talking about someone who, and as you said it yourself, who's still fighting this cancer and who journaled this every day during your treatment. And this is, do you know, I wanted to be able to say this today, and this is a good opportunity to give you a little rundown of someone like me on the outside reading it, there was some days where you were talking about horrific things, and I was laughing because the way you had put it, and it was you deliberately set it up to be humorous. I wasn't laughing at your suffering, but the way you joked about it. Or there was days when I read it and was just happy and content. Gavin's had a good day. There are days, and again, this is credit to you and everybody else in the world who goes through this. From someone who is, thank God, healthy, there was days I couldn't face it. There was days I couldn't face it for you, and selfishly for me. I want people to go back in and read that if they haven't done, especially for the funny parts. That's what got me onto thinking about this now. But there was days where you were talking about this horrific cancer situation and you were still making jokes about it. You were seeing the humour and just...
Yeah, that was genuine. I'd never reached the point where I was really down, but thinking I'm going to write this as if it's funny. All the stuff that I wrote that was funny had made me laugh.
Yeah.
Had made me laugh myself.
Isn't that the lesson about life? And again, we're probably going to go in a mad tangent here, but there's joy, there's humour, there's sadness, there's anger, there's in every single element of life.
Yeah.
There is humour in cancer treatment. There is sorrow in the happiest days you have. And maybe people roll their eyes at that. I believe that, but I think, and you're proof that you were going through that and you thought, do you want to know what? This is actually funny. What's just happened to me is funny, and I'm going to document that. And
yeah.
that just added a richness to it.
And it's not just martial arts, but the martial arts do bring these traits out. You know, this the mindset of, you know, seeing fun and stuff, because if you don't, you can't get through it. You know, also on the 30 man, they will have done sentry duty. You know, they're woken up at 4 a.m. They've got the 4 to 5 slot or the 3 to 4, and they have to stand out in the rain for an hour in the middle of the night. And just that level of hardship. You're always with other people. That bonds them together. If you can't find humour in that, you can't get through it, I don't think.
Yeah.
And again, I think the tougher the environment, the more that brings that out in you, and the sort of more superficial your martial arts training is, the less that's relevant or even present.
Two things came into my head there. My student, I given a shout out to Alec Walker, who's one of my best friends as well now after all these years. When we used to do sort of when I say pad drills, I mean just with the gloves. So let's say you took a left jab, right cross, and then you gathered your gloves at the side to take roundhouse kick or even leg kicks and things. And we don't do it often enough now, probably because we're getting old, but we would stand in class and actually hammer each other. And see, after the first couple, you'd be in hysterical laughing.
Yeah, right.
And he was putting a hole in me. Like, you're thinking, Jesus. And then you don't know where the laughter comes from, but it does. So that was just the first wee point to put in there. And talking about the training for the 30 man and the standing outside in the rain at 4 a.m, one of the things that, and this is a message to any of my students listening, one of the things that I encourage a lot is cold showers. Now, that is not comparable to what you're talking about. It is in a watered down way, pardon the pun, but the lesson there is, if you think I'm bad, go train with Gavin for a couple of months. It's why do I encourage cold showers? I actually encourage people to shower with warm water first and then turn it cold, so that they have to be in that shower knowing that.
You know what, that's so interesting, because this is genuinely true. I only recently, like in the last year, found out that not everyone does that. Right? I only recently found out, and it was because I was mentioned it at work, and it's funny how much you're influenced by your childhood, right? I didn't know that when people have a shower, they don't have it hot, and then for the last 30 seconds turn it to freezing cold. Yeah. I thought that's how everyone did it. It turns out everyone's like, what do you mean?
People
you don't do that.
People find that, Gavin, horrific. Like, and this is the point why I encourage it. this is I'm happy that that's a very watered down difficulty, but it is difficult. It's hard.
It's that eat bitter every day, isn't it? It's that little bit of eat bitter.
Yep. So you've got to stand there in that warm shower, knowing that it's coming, and it's that knowing that it's coming, and that you getting back to that bit of advice that you got. Enjoy it, embrace it, or don't. But you better turn that shower dial, and you better stand there for 30 seconds. But
I got a last year or the year before maybe got a memory foam mattress, right? Charlie got his memory foam mattress, and it was on a Saturday. I got it done the Friday, and on Saturday I'd slept into 10 o'clock. So Charlie had gone off to work, and by the time she got back, I'd sent it back. And it was funny because I rang up the people, said, "Come and get this," and they obviously had a little tick form about why are you saying about it? I said it's too comfortable. I slept in till 10 o'clock. It's too comfortable. It's not for the likes of me, right? I said, send it back. They obviously didn't have that on their tick box. So like, what do you mean? I said it's too comfortable. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I sent it back as Charlie wasn't happy when she got home, but I got rid of it. I don't want that. That's not for the likes of me, Kareem.
That was I'll move on to something else in a second, but that was obviously you lived in Scotland for a time as well, and
yeah,
you'll be it's known round about the whole world now, but it has always been the Edinburgh Festival. That was actually one of the jokes of the year a couple of years back, and I can't remember which comedian it was, but he said his wife had got a memory foam mattress, and now it was blackmailing him because it knew exactly what he was up to. So I can't remember who that was, but right. So let's jump back in. The other thing I wanted to mention, God, we've been chatting for an hour already, was the upcoming seminars that Steve Rowe's running. I think we should take a time to have a chat about them on this format as well.
Yeah, that's really good. I've got a shout out to Steve Rowe and Paul Coleman. Actually, who's going through. Paul Coleman is terminal cancer. So Steve Rowe has just upped. Steve Rowe's got his own problems. You know, he's dealing with cancer himself. He's had a leg amputated. He's had numerous problems, and he's up and almost come out of retirement really to set up a seminar on Sanchin and 110 show, one for me and one for Paul Coleman, running in sort of January and February, just to raise a bit of money and help, just to help. And that's quite a remarkable thing for him to do, to talk about that wider community. I mean, I know Steve quite well. We talk, but there's talking and then there's doing. And there's a few people, to be fair, that have said to me, if you want us to run seminars, we'll do that for you. And I've gone, no. But Steve didn't do that. He did check, but he said, I'm setting these things up. Yeah. And then he did it. And it's a big difference. And just got ahead and did it. And he's coming out. I mean, I won't be that my own fundraising, but genuinely interested because he's got genuine different view on things, Steve, because he's gone very far into sort of been a martial artist for a very long time for a start, but also Tai Chi guy and very internal in the Chinese. He's going to be looking at those two kata from a Chinese perspective, and I know it will all be about pumping from the soles of the feet and vagus nerve and internal connections and stuff. So I think it could be really interesting, and I'll definitely want people who are on it to take good notes.
Yeah, it's again, it's just been the theme of this whole conversation, and it makes you proud. It does make you proud. It makes you proud that you're part of it. And it's one of the reasons why I can never understand why people are. We have this problem in Taekwondo. There's certain organizations that just don't look out and they don't look in, or they don't allow people in, and it's closed championships and everything's closed. And it's, as I say, it's been the theme of this full conversation today, or one of the main themes, just about how much. I mean, Steve's now, obviously his history was very much karate, but kung fu and tai chi, and he's sort of stepping up now for a karate guy, and you're sitting talking to a taekwondo guy who's, and it's brilliant. It frustrates me that people don't embrace it as much as what they should do. As you mentioned a couple of things at the beginning. I've only got a couple more points that I want to cover, but you'd said, and again, you might not remember, a couple of things you wanted to talk about. Is there anything that I should have noted these down, but we've probably covered them. We have probably covered them.
Probably.
This is a question that I can't remember the chap's first name now, but he does is it the Diary of the CEO? He's the boy Bartlett. He's on. It's a podcast that he has, and it's really good actually. Stephen Fry.
Right.
Stephen Fry's one of my all-time heroes. He was on it just the other day.
Right.
Anyway, he also does Dragon's Den. I should have looked his name up as well. Anyway, there's a question that he asks people that I thought, I'm going to steal that, and I'm going to when I start the podcast back up, I'm going to use it. And this is the question. So you've obviously done podcasts and interviews, and even students asking for or having conversations with students, or any time that you've interacted and being asked questions. All right. So we might even finish up with this one. Is there a question that you wish you'd been asked because there's information that you wanted to say or get across? What would that question be? Like the last time we done the podcast, did you come off and think, oh, that's another interview I've done and I've not been asked about that, so I haven't been able to share that wee nugget of wisdom? Or
so that is an interesting one, and I think I don't think I've got a proper answer for it, because I think what I do is I twist people's questions around to give them the answer that I want to talk about. I think is what I do. So I've usually said my own stuff, in connection to it.
Yeah,
but I think in terms of, it would be around mindset.
Okay.
It would be around mindset, and it's a hard question to answer, which probably is why it doesn't come. And I think we do cover it, and probably have covered it here, because I think for to go through the cancer treatment, it's all mindset. It's all those gradings I got through, all that punishment I got through. I know I could do that, and that gave me strength to do this and see it in the same light. But I think people talk a lot about the physicality of training and the techniques or fights you've had or the door work or stuff. And really, they never really ask about the connection of the mindset that deals with all those three, that makes those things the same. Because people talk about the fight a lot in martial arts, and yeah, I'm going to say it, they don't know what they're talking about. Sparring isn't fighting. That isn't a fight. It's a fight of sort, but that's not what a fight looks like. It doesn't have to either. You just have to recognize it for what it is. To me, bunkai is much more like the fight. People denigrate that, and I say that because most of my experience of, not all, but most of it has been door work, and then you've got this confrontation, someone throws something and you deal with it real quick. That's much more like bunkai than then sort of dancing around trying to get a shot in. That very rarely happens. But the mindset that those things instill in you, the mindset, and I see it now. I saw a little clip recently from some MMA guys taking the piss out of Aikido, I think it was, and they put this sort of fist lock on, and he said, look, now I've got control of him, and then the guy choked him out because he went around the back, but totally missing the point that you don't hold the fingers there, you snap them all. Then do your choke with your full broken. It's just a misunderstanding you see going on, and what they're missing is the mindset. They're missing the mindset. They see, even, I don't do a lot of this, but see this sort of Japanese karate marching up and down doing endless reps. What they're missing, the point of saying that's no good. It's not. But what they're missing, the point is the mindset. And actually, that's where Shotokan majors on mindset. For me, again, it's not really a complete fighting system, Shotokan, but it wasn't supposed to be. And this is in Funakoshi's own books. It's about building spirit, which it does really, really well. And they miss the point of that. Somehow you've got to put that together. You've got to get that mindset into the fight. And for Shotokan, that was really because he was getting people ready for the military. But it's that connection of it's the connection of all the bits that I think people fail to ask. They might ask you about kata and kion and kumite. They never sort of really get to the point about how they relate to the fight. What's that got to do with fighting? I think is the question I would always like to be asked, is what's that particular bit got to do with fighting? Because it all has to have to do with fighting, right? Or it shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. I think we find in most martial arts, that's a question that I think I have I do have an answer for this, but I'm going to ask you just before we finish, because a number of my students have been we've been talking about this constantly, and I'm thinking, should I actually just write something out about this or talk about it in the podcast? People still really struggle to distinguish between sparring and fighting.
Yeah, they do.
And this is people who, and I don't think this is a bad thing. I think this is a very good thing, who've never had a fight.
Yeah.
And as I say, just to be 100% clear, to me, that's a good thing. In a sense, and we talked about this in the last podcast.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see anybody fighting. That's the point I'm trying to make. I don't want. If someone goes through life never having to be in that situation, fantastic. But since we're here, and I'll only keep you for another couple of minutes, but
so we're in slight disagreement on that one, but carry on.
No, we are, and I know, and people should go back to the previous podcast because we touched on that.
Yeah.
Too. God bless him. We touched on your brother being sent out by your dad to look for fights. Or finish the ones that had been started.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, and again, that's episode 42. If anybody wants to go back, but if a colour belt student, mid-level student, and you used that term yourself earlier, and I quite like that, a mid-term student asked you, Sensei, what's the difference between sparring and fighting? Now remember, you're at the class and you've only got 5 minutes at the end and you're leaving the hall. What would you say in that couple of minutes, if you can? Well,
the main difference is intent. Nobody's really trying to put the other one away. Even full contact, you're not trying to put the other one away. And intent and agreement, because fights are rarely done by agreement, right? And this is why MMA isn't a fight either, because what you've got is two guys the same. I'm not saying it's easy, it's not, but two guys the same weight who do the same thing, who've agreed to have the fight, known for 3 months that it's coming, had a massage that day, got 8 pounds the night before, and that's not the same, because what a fight is you're walking along with maybe even your children or your wife, and you've just had a meal, and you haven't got trainers on, you've got leather shoes, you try to put your nice clothes on, and someone's just come and smacked you in the head from the side. Then you're in it. No, and you hit it's overwhelming and on you. There's no agreement to it.
Yeah.
And you don't have this exchange of techniques. You don't have that. What you have is a short, violent burst, and usually the first big hit wins.
So, if you're one of my students who has asked me that question in the last couple of months, there you go. That's succinct. That's what I've been trying to. I have said that, to be honest, and to be fair, I have said that, but I'm still. I encourage as much investigation from my students as I possibly can, and maybe to my detriment sometimes, because maybe not. I take that back. The nothing's ever enough, and I love that fact. I love that they want to dig and dig.
And one way to kind of approach it, which is a no approach at all, but that's what a martial art is to try and get that. Is you've got your students, rather, and you say, okay, right, sparring, go and put your mouth guards on, and they use it as a kind of getting your mind right. So take a bit of time, put the gloves on, put the mouth guard in, pick who they don't know. And I'm always saying, what are you looking for? When I see people, I say, right, change, and someone's like, what are you looking for? I know what you're looking for. You're looking for the littlest guy you can find. Turn around, bow to the one next to you. But just to say, I mean, you've got to balance this because, with protective equipment, if you will, but actually, during training, normal training, just say, right, fight, now, go. Don't allow them that time to go and get the gloves, get their mate, think, right, it's now, I've got moving from that phase to sparring. It's like, shift, fight.
Yeah.
And as soon as you say it, that they're instructed to whack them hard, bang, get that shot in the closest person to you.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that doesn't replicate either, but none of it does, because if you want to teach people to fight, and this is kind of the MMA route, I'm simplifying it, I mean no disrespect to MMA, but it's easy to teach people to fight, right? What I do is I get you and I get someone else, I say, right, you guys fight. And then I stop you and say, right, what you need to do, fight again. Any can do that, right? What a martial arts is doing is, how can I teach you to fight without getting you hurt?
Yeah.
So you can go to work tomorrow. So, punching you repeatedly in the head is not martial. We kind of know that's insanity now. That is going to damage you. Martial arts aren't there to damage you. Yeah. Undoubtedly, that'll teach you how to fight. Undoubtedly. But the skill of a martial art or martial teacher is, how can I teach you to fight without injuring, without damaging you permanently? How can I give you this guidance? One of the reasons I really got out of, the cage and stuff, was the raw materials. Basically the people who want to go in a cage want to fight, and the people that come to you for martial arts want to be able to fight if they have to. Don't want to fight, and that's different raw material, and that's more rewarding, I think, for me.
100%.
But it's that thing. So none of it is the fight. You've just got to approach it in different ways. But this, again, to me, it's putting it all together. That's why it's important. What you ask, your question is why it's important to be clear about why your kata or your forms go into fighting, because those young guys think, okay, this is the fighting bit. What's all that shit? Yeah. So they need to be able to see, or you need to be able to see, how it all fits together.
Yep, 100%, 100%. That wee bit that you said there about just surprising them in the class. Now, I never ever cut anything out of the podcast, and I generally won't. But my brain said I better cut that bit out because everybody will listen to this, and then the surprise will be gone. But some of them won't listen to it, and they'll get caught by surprise. Right. Gavin Mulholland, thank you. I'm so glad that you agreed to come back on. You're in a very small group of people that have appeared twice now. I'm so glad that we had the conversation, and I'm so glad that I decided to get back in the chair, so to speak, and do this because
pleasure. No problem at all. Anytime.
Even though the subject matter is extremely heavy, we still managed to find the humour, as we talked about.
You get what you're given, don't you? You get what you're given.
It was a pleasure, buddy. It really was.
Yeah.
Okay, Gavin, I'll let you go there and
take care. Look after yourself.
Thank you so much, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay,
my pleasure.
bye bye. Bye bye.